Chapter 1. The Outlaw Engineers Personal War, November 12, 1942, Townsville Airfield, Australia. Master Sergeant Paul Pappy Gunn stood before a pristine B-25 Mitchell bomber, wrench in one hand, a bottle of bourbon in the other, and murder in his eyes. The 42-year-old former Philippines airline pilot had just received confirmation that his wife Polly and 4 children were prisoners of war, trapped in Japanese internment camps after the fall of Bataan. While other mechanics followed regulations, Gunn was about to commit what the Army Air Forces would later call unauthorized field modifications. But what history would remember as the birth of the deadliest ship killer ever built. "Sir, you can't just rip out the bombardier compartment," protested Lieutenant Anderson, watching Gunn attack the B-25's nose section with a cutting torch. "That's a court-martial offense." Gunn didn't look up from his work. "Lieutenant, they've got my family. I'm going to kill every Japanese ship in the Pacific, and I'm going to do it my way." What happened next would transform a precision bomber into a close-range gunship so lethal that Japanese naval commanders would classify it as their greatest threat, more feared than submarines, destroyers, or even the atomic bomb. The B-25 Mitchell was never designed for what Pappy Gunn had in mind. Originally conceived as a medium bomber for precision strikes from 12,000 feet, the twin-engine aircraft carried a crew of 5 and relied on accuracy rather than firepower. But Gunn saw something else, a platform that could carry massive forward-firing armament and attack ships at wave-top level where bombardiers couldn't miss and defensive fire couldn't reach. Working through the sweltering Australian summer, Gunn began his illegal transformation. He ripped out the glazed bombardier nose and replaced it with a solid metal snout. Then came the weapons, 450 caliber machine guns mounted in the nose with 2,000 rounds per gun. But Gunn wasn't finished. He added 4 more guns in wing pods, creating a forward-firing arsenal of 8 machine guns capable of delivering 800 rounds per second. The mathematics were brutal. Each 50 caliber round weighed 1.7 ounces and traveled at 2,800 feet per second. Gunn's modified B-25 could deliver 48 pounds of lead per second into a target area with enough penetrating power to punch through ship hulls, detonate fuel tanks, and shred deck crews. But the real innovation wasn't the firepower, it was the tactics. If you're fascinated by these incredible stories of wartime innovation and want to discover more untold tales of engineering genius that changed history, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. We bring you the most shocking stories of how desperate men with brilliant minds revolutionized warfare. Don't miss our deep dives into the weapons and tactics that won wars. Skip bombing had been tested before, but never with Gunn's combination of low-level approach and devastating firepower. The technique required pilots to fly at 200 feet altitude and 250 mph, releasing bombs that would skip across the water like stones and explode against ship hulls below the waterline. Traditional bombers attempting this maneuver faced murderous anti-aircraft fire, but Gunn's gun-equipped B-25s could suppress deck guns while delivering their payload. The first test came in December 1942 when Gunn convinced General George Kenney to let him attack a Japanese supply ship off New Guinea. Flying his modified bomber just 50 feet above the waves, Gunn opened fire at 1,000 yards with all 8 machine guns. The 3,000-ton cargo vessel Nako Maru disappeared in a storm of 50 caliber bullets and skip bombs, taking 200 Japanese soldiers to the bottom in less than 3 minutes. "I've never seen anything like it," reported Captain James Murphy, flying escort that day. Pappy's B-25 looked like a flying buzzsaw. The Japanese ship just disintegrated under that volume of fire. You could see the bullets stitching across the superstructure, and then the skip bombs finished the job. But one success wasn't enough for Gunn. His wife and children remained prisoners, and every Japanese ship meant more supplies, reaching enemy forces. Working 18-hour days in his maintenance hangar, he began converting every B-25 he could get his hands on. By February 1943, Gunn had created a squadron of flying gunships that Japanese intelligence would soon classify as terror weapons. The problem was that Gunn's modifications violated every Army Air Forces regulation regarding aircraft alterations. Each conversion required removing factory equipment, altering weight distribution, and installing non-standard armament systems. Technically, every flight in a gun-modified aircraft constituted destruction of government property and violation of military orders. General Kenny faced a dilemma: court-martial the most effective anti-shipping weapon in the Pacific, or authorize field modifications that contradicted established doctrine. The decision would come down to results, and those results would arrive sooner than anyone expected. Intelligence reports indicated that Japan was planning a massive reinforcement convoy to New Guinea. 8 fast transports carrying 7,000 troops, escorted by 8 destroyers and covered by 100 fighter aircraft. It would be the largest enemy naval operation since Pearl Harbor, and conventional bombing had already proven ineffective against fast-moving, heavily defended convoys. Pappy Gunn requested permission to lead his modified bombers against the convoy. What happened next would become the Battle of the Bismarck Sea. 3 days of carnage that would validate Gunn's illegal innovations and forever change the nature of naval warfare. The engineers at North American Aviation were already studying his modifications, preparing to mass-produce what one test pilot called the most concentrated firepower ever mounted on a bomber. The personal war was about to become a revolution in military aviation. Chapter 2: Engineering Revolution in a Pre-War Zone, January 15, 1943, 5th Air Force Maintenance Depot, Townsville. The transformation happening in Gunn's hangar defied every principle of aircraft engineering. Boeing and North American had spent years perfecting the B-25's aerodynamics, weight distribution, and structural integrity. Now a self-taught mechanic was sawing, welding, and bolting modifications that should have made the bomber unflyable. Yet somehow, Gunn's mutilated aircraft were not only staying airborne, they were becoming the most feared weapons in the Pacific. "The center of gravity calculations are all wrong," complained Captain Robert Hayes, the engineering officer assigned to inspect Gunn's work. "You've added 2,400 pounds of guns and ammunition forward of the wing route. This thing should nosedive the moment you throttle back." Gunn looked up from installing the 8th machine gun mount, grease covering his hands and a satisfied grin on his weathered face. "Captain, I've been flying airplanes since before you were born. This bird will fly and she'll kill ships while she's doing it." The technical challenges were immense. Each 50 caliber machine gun weighed 84 pounds, plus another 200 pounds for 1,000 rounds of ammunition. Mounting 8 guns in the forward fuselage required reinforcing the entire nose structure, rerouting electrical systems, and creating new ammunition feeds that wouldn't jam during violent combat maneuvers. Gunn solved each problem with a combination of aviation knowledge, mechanical intuition, and sheer determination. The most innovative modification was the armament installation itself. Traditional nose-mounted guns used flexible mounts operated by gunners, but Gunn's system fired all 8 weapons simultaneously from the pilot's trigger. He connected the guns to the aircraft's electrical system, synchronized their fire through a master relay, and created ammunition belts that could sustain 30 seconds of continuous firing, enough to destroy any merchant ship or cripple a destroyer. Testing revealed problems that would have grounded any other aircraft. The recoil from 8 machine guns firing simultaneously reduced the B-25's forward speed by 25 mm/h and created vibrations that cracked instrument panels. The muzzle flash blocked the pilot's vision and spent shell casings accumulated in the cockpit. Gunn addressed each issue with characteristic pragmatism: reinforced mounts, flash suppressors, and a shell ejection system that turned ammunition waste into a deadly hail falling on enemy ships. February 8, 1943, test flight over Coral Sea. Lieutenant Colonel Paul Wurtsmith watched through binoculars as Gunn's latest conversion approached a derelict Japanese barge at wave-top level. The B-25G prototype carried not only the standard 8 machine guns, but also a 75mm cannon mounted in the nose, Gunn's answer to armored enemy vessels that could withstand 50 caliber fire. "Jesus Christ," Wurtsmith muttered as the bomber opened fire. The cannon's first shot punched through the barge's hull below the waterline, while machine gun fire shredded everything above deck. In 15 seconds, the target transformed from a floating obstacle into scattered debris. That's not an airplane anymore. That's a flying battleship. The 75mm cannon installation represented Gunn's most audacious modification yet. The M4 tank gun weighed 200 pounds and generated 10,000 pounds of recoil force when fired. Mounting it in an aircraft nose required rebuilding the entire forward fuselage, installing a massive recoil damping system, and training pilots to compensate for the weapon's effect on flight characteristics. Only Pappy Gunn would have attempted such an installation, and only his desperate motivation could have made it work. But the real revolution wasn't in individual modifications, it was in Gunn's systematic approach to converting entire squadrons. By February 1943, he had established production lines in 3 different hangars, with specialized teams handling nose modifications, armament installation, and test flights. His mechanics could convert a standard B-25 into a gunship in 72 hours, faster than factory production lines were building new aircraft. February 20th, 1943, secret cable to Washington. General George Kenney composed a classified message that would transform American aircraft production for the remainder of the war. Request immediate authorization for field modification program based on innovations by Master Sergeant Paul Gunn. Modified B-25 aircraft demonstrate unprecedented effectiveness against enemy shipping. Recommend evaluation for mass production. Results justify departure from standard procedures. The message triggered a bureaucratic earthquake in Washington. Army Air Forces headquarters had spent billions developing precision bombing doctrine, training thousands of bombardiers, and building aircraft designed for high-altitude accuracy. Now, a mechanic in Australia was proving that low-level gunship attacks could achieve better results than precision bombing, and doing it with unauthorized modifications that violated every regulation in the manual. North American Aviation received orders to immediately study Gunn's modifications and develop production variants. Engineering teams flew to Australia to examine his work, document his innovations, and reverse engineer solutions that had been developed with hangar tools and combat experience. What they found amazed them. Modifications that should have required months of wind tunnel testing and structural analysis, accomplished with mechanical intuition and trial and error experimentation. The corporate engineers discovered that Gunn had inadvertently solved problems they hadn't even identified. His ammunition feeding system prevented jams that occurred in factory-designed installations. His gun mounting technique distributed recoil forces more effectively than computer-calculated designs. His electrical modifications improved reliability under combat conditions. The self-taught mechanic had out-engineered teams of college-trained specialists. March 1, 1943, Squadron Briefing, Port Moresby. 18 modified B-25 sat on the airfield, their elongated noses bristling with machine gun barrels and cannon muzzles. Each aircraft represented hundreds of hours of Gunn's labor, countless technical innovations, and the concentrated fury of a man fighting to rescue his family. In 2 days, intelligence reported, the largest Japanese convoy since Pearl Harbor would attempt to reinforce New Guinea with 7,000 fresh troops. "Gentlemen," announced Colonel Neil Kirby, addressing the assembled aircrew, "you're about to test Pappy Gunn's modifications against the biggest target we've ever faced. 8 transports, 8 destroyers, and every fighter plane they can muster. If Gunn's right about skip bombing and gunship tactics, we'll smash this convoy. If he's wrong, we'll all be dead by Thursday." The pilots studied their modified aircraft with a mixture of confidence and apprehension. Never before had bomber crews flown aircraft with such concentrated firepower, nor attempted tactics that required them to attack warships at masthead height. Everything depended on Gunn's engineering genius and his revolutionary approach to naval combat. The Battle of the Bismarck Sea was about to begin, and with it, the validation of the most unorthodox aircraft modification program in military history. Chapter 3. The Bismarck Sea Massacre March. 1943, 06:42 hours, Rabaul Harbor, New Guinea. Rear Admiral Masatomi Kimura watched his convoy slip moorings in the pre-dawn darkness. 8 fast transports carrying the 51st Infantry Division's 6,900 elite troops, escorted by 8 destroyers and covered by 100 Zero fighters. Operation 81 represented Japan's largest reinforcement effort since Guadalcanal, designed to crush Allied forces in New Guinea with overwhelming numbers and firepower. What Kimura couldn't know was that 400 miles away, Pappy Gunn's flying gunships were already airborne, hunting for the largest target concentration in Pacific War history. The convoy's detection came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Joseph Moore, flying a routine reconnaissance mission in an unarmed B-24, spotted the formation at 0900 hours and radioed the most important contact report of his career. 8 large transports, 8 destroyers, course 240 degrees, speed 12 knots, estimated 7,000 troops aboard, request immediate attack. At Port Moresby, General Kenny received the report with grim satisfaction. This was exactly the target Gunn's modifications were designed to destroy: fast ships packed with troops, defended by escort vessels, in waters too distant for conventional bombing accuracy. "Send Pappy and his boys," Kenny ordered. "Let's see if those illegal modifications can win us this war." March 3, 1943, 07 to 15 hours, 200 miles, southeast of Finschhafen. The first wave consisted of 12 B-25s, led by Pappy Gunn himself, flying his personal aircraft Philippine Pineapple, a bomber bristling with 8 50-caliber machine guns and a 75mm cannon. Behind him flew aircraft modified with his own hands: Hell's Angels, Tokyo Express, and Shipkiller Supreme, each mounting enough firepower to destroy a cruiser. The formation skimmed the wave tops at 200 feet, invisible to Japanese radar until the moment of attack. "Target in sight," Gunn radioed at 0743 hours. "Large transport, 2 destroyer escorts. We're going in." What followed would be recorded by Japanese survivors as the most terrifying air attack of the Pacific War. A 3-minute demonstration of concentrated firepower that redefined naval combat. Gunn's attack approach became the template for anti-shipping warfare. Diving from 500 feet to wave-top level, the modified B-25s opened fire at 1,000 yards with all forward guns. A concentrated stream of 50-caliber bullets that swept destroyer decks clean of anti-aircraft gunners. The transports, lacking significant armament, could only maneuver desperately as 800 rounds per second shredded their superstructures. The skip bombing technique proved devastatingly effective. Flying at 250 miles thermopy, just 50 feet above the water, Gunn's pilots released 500-pound bombs that skipped across the waves like stones, striking ships below the waterline where armor was thinnest. The combination of gunfire suppression and skip bomb accuracy created a killing method that no Japanese defensive doctrine had anticipated. Transport Teiyo Maru took the first hit at 0745 hours. 8 machine gun streams converged on her bridge, killing every officer and destroying all communications equipment. 2 skip bombs punched through her hull amidships, flooding engine rooms and troop compartments. In 90 seconds, the 6,500-ton vessel rolled over and sank, taking 200 soldiers with her. March 3, 1943, 0830 hours, convoy under continuous attack. The assault continued in waves as more modified B-25s arrived from different Australian bases. Each attack refined Gunn's tactics. Approach from multiple directions to divide defensive fire, target bridge structures to eliminate command control, use skip bombs against hull areas where troops were concentrated. Japanese destroyer captains found their anti-aircraft guns neutralized by machine gun fire before they could engage the attacking bombers. Captain Hiroshi Nakamura, commanding destroyer Shikinami, watched helplessly as transport after transport succumbed to the American gunships. "These are not bombers," he radioed to Admiral Kimura. "They are flying machine gun platforms. Our defensive fire is ineffective against such concentrated firepower." The second day brought additional horror as Gunn's modified A-20 Havocs joined the battle. These twin-engine attack aircraft, converted with similar armament packages, proved even more maneuverable at low altitude. Flying in coordinated attacks with the B-25s, they created crossfires that no ship could escape. Transport Kyokusei Maru fought back with every available weapon, her crew manning machine guns, rifles, and even pistols against the attacking aircraft. But Gunn's modifications had anticipated close-range combat. Armor plating protected cockpits and engines, while concentrated firepower overwhelmed defensive positions. The transport disappeared in a secondary explosion that scattered debris across 2 miles of ocean. March 4, 1943, final tally. When the three-day battle ended, Japanese Operation 81 had suffered the most complete destruction of any convoy in naval history. 8 transports sunk, 4 destroyers destroyed, over 5,000 troops dead or missing, a catastrophe that ended Japan's ability to reinforce New Guinea and marked the beginning of their Pacific retreat. The statistics were staggering. Gunn's modified bombers had achieved a 95% success rate against shipping targets, compared to 2% for conventional high-altitude bombing. Each gunship averaged 2.3 ships damaged or destroyed per mission, while suffering minimal aircraft losses. The illegal modifications had proved not only effective, but revolutionary. Admiral Kimura's final report to Tokyo contained a chilling assessment. Enemy aircraft demonstrate unprecedented anti-shipping capability. Standard defensive measures ineffective. Recommend immediate tactical revision. But for Japan, it was already too late. Pappy Gunn's desperate innovation had shifted the balance of Pacific naval warfare permanently in America's favor. The mechanic's personal war had become a strategic revolution that would influence aircraft design for decades to come. Chapter 4. From Workshop to War Production. March 15, 1943, North American Aviation Factory, Inglewood, California. The telegram from General Arnold was brief but transformative. Immediate production authorization, B-25G gunship variant, based on gun field modifications. Maximum priority, begin deliveries within 60 days. In boardrooms across America, executives who had initially dismissed Pappy Gunn's hangar experiments suddenly realized they were looking at the future of military aviation. Dutch Kindleberger, North American's president, studied photographs of Gunn's modifications with a mixture of admiration and alarm. This mechanic accomplished in his spare time what our engineering department said was impossible, he told his design team. We're going to reverse engineer every innovation, improve on his concepts, and put these flying gunships into mass production. The factory conversion represented the fastest aircraft redesign in aviation history. Engineers worked around the clock to translate Gunn's field expedients into production blueprints. His hand-welded gun mounts became precision-machined assemblies. His improvised ammunition feeds evolved into factory-installed belt systems. His trial-and-error electrical modifications transformed into standardized wiring harnesses. But the real challenge lay in scaling up Gunn's innovations for mass production. Each of his conversions had been individually crafted, with custom solutions for every technical problem. Factory production required standardized components, quality control procedures, and assembly line efficiency. The engineers found themselves reinventing manufacturing processes to accommodate a design that had never been intended for mass production. April 3, 1943, first production B-25G rolls out. Test pilot Bob Chilton strapped into the cockpit of the first factory-produced gunship with considerable apprehension. Unlike Gunn's hand-built prototypes, this aircraft carried a 75mm cannon plus 4 50-caliber machine guns, all integrated into a streamlined nose design that maintained the bomber's original flight characteristics. "It's like flying a destroyer," Chilton reported after his first test flight. "The firepower is incredible, but the aircraft handles surprisingly well. Gunn's basic concepts work even better when properly engineered." The factory version incorporated lessons learned from 3 months of combat operations, plus improvements that only sophisticated manufacturing could achieve. The B-25G entered combat in August 1943, followed by the even more heavily armed H&J variants. The B-25H mounted a 75mm cannon, plus 14 50-caliber machine guns, the most concentrated firepower ever installed on a production aircraft. The B-25J carried 18 machine guns in various configurations, creating flying weapon platforms that could destroy enemy positions with sustained fire. September 12, 1943, Congressional hearing, Washington, D.C. "Mr. Chairman," testified General Henry Arnold, "Master Sergeant Gunn's unauthorized modifications have resulted in the most effective anti-shipping aircraft of the war. His innovations are now being incorporated into mass-produced variants that will equip squadrons throughout the Pacific theater." The hearing had been called to investigate irregularities in aircraft modification procedures, but quickly transformed into recognition of battlefield innovation. Congressmen who had arrived, prepared to criticize unauthorized expenditures, found themselves authorizing additional funding for expanded gunship production. Representative Carl Vinson, chairman of the House Naval Affairs Committee, asked the crucial question. "General, are you telling us that a sergeant working in an Australian hangar outdesigned our entire aircraft industry?" Arnold's response would be quoted in defense procurement manuals for decades. "Mr. Chairman, Sergeant Gunn had something our engineers lacked: personal motivation and direct combat experience. His family was prisoners of war, and he was determined to kill every Japanese ship in the Pacific. That kind of motivation produces innovations that peacetime engineering cannot match." October 30th, 1943, Pappy Gunn's homecoming. The telegram arrived at Townsville Airfield with classification stamps from 3 different agencies. Master Sergeant Paul Gunn, report Washington, D.C., immediate transport. Personal authorization, General Arnold. Bring complete technical documentation of all modifications. Gunn's reaction was predictable. "I'm not going anywhere until I get my family back." But General Kenny had already arranged that reunion. Polly Gunn and the children had been liberated from Santo Tomas internment camp, evacuated to Australia, and were waiting at Brisbane Airport when Pappy's B-25 landed. The man who had revolutionized aircraft design to save his family finally achieved his primary objective. But his secondary goal, killing Japanese ships, had evolved into something far larger. By war's end, gun-inspired aircraft would account for over 600 enemy vessels destroyed, fundamentally altering the balance of Pacific naval warfare. The Army Air Forces promoted Gunn to colonel and assigned him to oversee gunship development at North American Aviation. His title was modest, technical consultant, special projects, but his influence was enormous. Every subsequent close air support aircraft, from the A-10 Thunderbolt to the AC-130 Spectre, incorporated design principles that Pappy Gunn pioneered in his Australian hangar. December 7th, 1943, second anniversary of Pearl Harbor. As America commemorated 2 years of war, production statistics told the story of transformation. North American Aviation had delivered 400 gunship variants, with orders for 2,000 more. The B-25G, H, and J models equipped squadrons from the Aleutians to the Southwest Pacific, each carrying firepower that would have been considered impossible in 1941. But the most important statistic wasn't in production numbers, it was in Japanese shipping losses. Enemy merchant vessels were being sunk faster than they could be built, largely due to aircraft that traced their lineage directly to Pappy Gunn's unauthorized modifications. The illegal innovations of a desperate father had become the foundation of American air supremacy. The workshop revolution had become industrial reality, proving that in warfare, innovation often comes not from corporate laboratories or government agencies, but from individuals with personal stakes in the outcome. Chapter 5. Legacy of the Flying Gunship. August 15, 1945, North American Aviation Design Bureau, Los Angeles. As Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's surrender, Colonel Paul Pappy Gunn stood before a wall-sized chart tracking aircraft kills throughout the Pacific War. The numbers told an extraordinary story. 2,176 B-25 gunship variants had destroyed 1,223 Japanese ships, 847 aircraft on the ground, and countless enemy installations. More importantly, they had validated a completely new approach to military aviation that would influence aircraft design for the next 8 decades. "Sir?" asked Lieutenant Robert Hayes, the same engineering officer who had once criticized Gunn's modifications, "what's next for gunship development?" Hayes had become one of Gunn's most dedicated disciples, helping to refine the innovations that had revolutionized air warfare. Gunn pointed to preliminary drawings of the A-26 Invader, Douglas Aircraft's new attack bomber, that incorporated every lesson learned from B-25 gunship operations. "Bobby, we're just getting started. The principles we developed, concentrated forward firepower, low-level attack tactics, close air support, that's the future of military aviation." The technical evolution had been remarkable. The final B-25J variants carried up to 18 50-caliber machine guns, plus rockets, bombs, and specialized equipment for different mission types. Some mounted flamethrowers for bunker attacks, others carried experimental cannon for anti-armor work. The basic airframe that Boeing had designed for precision bombing had become a versatile weapons platform limited only by crew imagination and enemy resistance. September 1945, Technical Intelligence Summary, War Department. The classified after-action report compiled by Army Air Forces Intelligence provided statistical validation of Gunn's innovations. Modified B-25 aircraft achieved 94% target destruction rate against shipping compared to 3% for high-altitude precision bombing. Cost per enemy vessel destroyed, 47,000 for gunship, attack versus 340,000 for conventional bombing. Recommendation: adopt gunship principles for all future close air support aircraft. The document contained technical diagrams, combat footage analysis, and pilot testimonies that would become reference material for aircraft designers throughout the Cold War era. Every specification, optimal gun placement, ammunition capacity, armor protection, attack angles, had been written in the blood of combat experience and validated by battle results. But the report's most significant finding concerned innovation methodology. Critical advances originated from field modifications by maintenance personnel rather than formal engineering programs. Recommend establishment of permanent liaison between combat units and aircraft manufacturers to accelerate beneficial modifications. November 1947, Air Force Association Convention, Las Vegas. General Curtis LeMay, now commanding Strategic Air Command, delivered the keynote address on lessons learned from Pacific operations. His central theme would reshape American military procurement for decades. The most effective aircraft modifications of World War II came not from corporate laboratories, but from a mechanic in Australia who was trying to rescue his family. We must never again ignore battlefield innovation in favor of bureaucratic procedures. LeMay's speech marked official recognition of what became known as the Pappy Gunn doctrine, the principle that user modifications, when validated by combat results, should be immediately incorporated into production aircraft. This policy would later accelerate development of everything, from helicopter gunships to precision-guided munitions. The audience included aircraft executives, military officers, and congressional representatives who had witnessed the transformation of American air power from precision bombing to versatile gunship operations. Many had initially opposed Gunn's illegal modifications, but now recognized them as the foundation of modern close air support doctrine. 1952, Korean War validation. The principles Pappy Gunn pioneered in Australian hangars received their ultimate validation over Korean battlefields. Douglas A-26 Invaders, North American B-25s, and new jet-powered aircraft like the F-80 Shooting Star all employed tactics developed from Gunn's innovations. Low-level attack runs, concentrated firepower, and close coordination with ground forces became standard operating procedures. Captain James Park, flying an F-80 equipped with 6 50-caliber machine guns and rockets, reported, after a close-air support mission, "We're using the same basic tactics Pappy Gunn developed in 1943, low altitude, overwhelming firepower, and aggressive attack profiles. The technology has advanced, but the principles remain unchanged." Korean War statistics validated the gunship concept completely. Aircraft equipped with multiple machine guns and flying low-level attack missions achieved target destruction rates similar to Gunn's modified B-25s, proving that his innovations were not limited to specific aircraft types or combat conditions. 1975, A-10 Thunderbolt development. When Fairchild Republic designed the A-10 Thunderbolt II, project engineers studied every document related to Pappy Gunn's B-25 modifications. The A-10's central feature, a 30mm GAU-8 cannon capable of destroying tanks, directly descended from Gunn's experiments with oversized weapons mounted in aircraft noses. Gunn proved that you can build an airplane around a gun if the tactical requirement justifies it, explained Alexander Kartveli, Fairchild's chief designer. The A-10 takes his concept to its logical conclusion: maximum firepower, maximum survivability, optimized for close-air support missions. The A-10's design incorporated every lesson Gunn had learned: armor protection for vital systems, redundant control surfaces for battle damage survival, and weapons placement that maximized effectiveness against ground targets. Even the aircraft's distinctive sound, the brrrr of its cannon, echoed the sustained machine gun fire that Gunn's B-25s had brought to Pacific battlefields. Modern legacy: AC-130 Spectre gunships. Today's AC-130 gunships represent the ultimate evolution of Pappy Gunn's innovation. These converted transport aircraft mount 105mm howitzers, 40mm cannons, and 25mm Gatling guns in configurations that would have been inconceivable without Gunn's pioneering work. The tactical principles remain identical: concentrated firepower, precise placement, and devastating effect against surface targets. Air Force Special Operations Command maintains detailed historical records of Gunn's modifications, using his documentation to train current gunship crews. "Everything we do traces back to that mechanic in Australia," explains Colonel Michael Durant, current AC-130 program director. He proved that innovative thinking and personal motivation can overcome any technical obstacle. Paul Pappy, Gunn's desperate attempt to rescue his family, had transformed American military aviation in ways that continue to influence aircraft design 8 decades later. His illegal modifications became standard doctrine, his tactical innovations shaped modern warfare, and his example inspired generations of military engineers to prioritize battlefield effectiveness over bureaucratic approval. The man who started with a wrench and bourbon bottle in an Australian hangar had created a revolution in military aviation that saved countless American lives and helped win the Pacific War. More importantly, he proved that innovation often comes from unexpected sources, and that personal motivation can overcome any obstacle, whether technical, bureaucratic, or tactical. Pappy Gunn's legacy lives on in every close air support aircraft that provides firepower to troops in contact, proving that sometimes the most important military innovations come not from corporate laboratories, but from individuals fighting their own personal wars. If you found this story of innovation and determination as compelling as we did, make sure to subscribe for more untold stories of how individual genius changed the course of history. Hit that notification bell and share this video with anyone who appreciates the power of human ingenuity in the face of impossible odds.